Yeah, so I'm from Atlanta, so if I have some Southern colloquialisms, just y'all have to deal with my funny Southern accent. All right, so I'm going to chat with y'all today about feature flags. But first, let me introduce myself. My name is Raven, and I just want to say I made this as big as I could just because I wanted to see my name super big behind me, so I just, please indulge me. So as she said, I'm from Atlanta, Georgia. I'm a back-end engineer. I work for a company called MailChimp. We are a marketing automation company. You may be familiar with us. You may have gotten an email from us. We send 1 billion emails a day. Or you may, as a developer, have used our email tools to do some one-to-one emails. But I'm here not to talk about MailChimp, but to talk about feature flags. So you can actually use feature flags for a few different reasons, but specifically, I want to talk about how can you use feature flags to help you be confident when you are trying to release new features to your users. Excuse me. So let's define feature flags. It's pretty simple here. You just want to use them as a tool to kind of slowly and gradually release new features to your users. Pretty much that's it. So why would you want to use them? There's a few reasons. I was talking to Simon last night, and he told me that you all have this site, this app here in the UK that allows you to basically borrow other people's dogs. And today in the States, it's National Puppy Day, and I have 2 dogs. I love dogs. I was amazed by this because we don't have this. So I was thinking to myself, this would be a perfect example of why you would want to use a feature flag. So say you have a small startup and you want to help join people who do not have dogs and with people who have a dog and, they just have so much love in their heart, they want to let you borrow their little buddy. You are running this application. It's getting traction. People are loving it. You are bringing light in their lives. You're finding yourself getting more and more users per month. So let's say that your unique login, so let's say you throw up a Google Analytics on your login page and you're getting your unique hits you're not getting an insignificant amount of unique hits per month, right? So you're seeing that you're getting more and more users. When you're using feature flags, one of the cool things is you could be confident that when you're increasing your user base, when your user base is increasing, you're not going to break things. So as developers, we also see this phrase called deploy early and deploy often. When I heard this, I was kind of like, okay, that sounds good. I'm not really sure what does that mean. When I first started working at MailChimp, we did this process. We didn't have feature flags. So what we would do is everyone would write their code for about 3 weeks and just go at it, write all their code, and then we would push to these release branches. And then at the end of 3 weeks, somebody, not me, would take that code and then they would push it to production. And so it was kind of a whole theatrical thing, right, to push and to deploy. And if anything broke, if anything happened or where something was going on where a user was having an issue, we would have to do something was called a hot fix. So deployments were this big production, and not a lot of people had the knowledge and the information of how to deploy. And it made it an issue. With feature flags, you can deploy really often, really easily, and you can add it into your workflow when you're trying to move towards a continuous integration environment. Now that we've added feature flags at MailChimp, we've noticed that we have about 120 engineers, and we have, on average, about 50 deployments a day, which I'm pretty proud of. I think that's really cool, versus the one on average every 4 weeks that we had previously. It allows us to be far more agile as a company, and allows us to, when things are going wrong, everyone has the ability to go out and fix things and push new features. And lastly, feature flags give you the ability to test in production, which is really, really useful. So let's say you have a user so let's say that you have a feature that you're pushing out, and it's based upon some third-party API. If you have that just in a staging environment, you're not going to be able to test that the same way that a user is going to use that in production. But if you use a feature flag and you have that code in a production environment, then when you are testing it, if you are trying to figure out how this thing can break, you'll be actually using it just the way that your user is going to use it. So if any of y'all have used payment platforms, payments can be tough. I've worked with payments before. This is one of the ways, right, that you could use it to actually see, hey, let me hit this API and see if it's actually working. So really kind of the question is, but how? Like, kind of let's get into the nitty-gritty of how would you add this feature flag to your application. So kind of let's kind of take it back to at the top of the talk. I did mention I'm an engineer at MailChimp, right? And I work specifically on an ads team. So I help our users send ads through Google and Facebook. So I was given this task last year where we wanted to kind of iterate on how our users were being able to set up their audiences when they were creating a new Facebook ad. Basically, we wanted to help them optimize how their audiences were so it was cheaper for their clicks, and they could, just help our users out, right? But I was like, okay, I want to add a feature flag on this. This is the perfect time to use it. So how did I do that? Well, most programming languages, you can actually use a configuration file to add a feature flag. So what you typically will do is go and add your flag to your configuration file. So if I'm doing something where I'm fixing up an audience and trying to re-optimize it, you can name that flag something like Facebook audience revamp and just add it to that configuration file. And then the other cool part about a feature flag, it's not really magic. It's one of actually like the first things that we learned as programmers. It's just an if statement, right? So we just need to check if this flag is on. So we'll just say if Facebook audience revamp is on, and we'll have our new behavior that we've written, and then we'll have else our old behavior, right? So essentially what we want to do is wrap the new code in that if statement with the flag, and then if that flag is not on, we want the code to execute the old behavior. And then this is, for me, I think some of the most exciting part of the flag is the ramp up. So I've been mentioning ramping up, I've been mentioning roll out. So like what does that mean? So a flag can be anywhere from 0 to 100, right? So 0 means that when a feature is deployed into production, when users access wherever that code is on your application, they can't access it. It's not available to them, 0%. When it's 100%, 100% of users can access it. And it's just on that period, that percentage of 0 to 100. And when we're talking about ramping up the flag, we really have to kind of think about how are we going to do this in the best way. So this is the whole idea really of what makes feature flags so powerful, why we want to do this, right? We want to do it to make sure that we're not breaking anything. I don't know if y'all have ever been in this situation at your companies where something breaks, right? You're pushing out a new feature, something breaks. You check Twitter at your company's Twitter handle. Hey, something's broken. Hey, you get emails. Hey, this thing isn't working, right? You want to avoid those kind of situations, and feature flags are going to allow you to do that. So the number one thing that you want to do in this situation is when you're adding your new behavior that you're wrapping your flag in, go ahead and log all your errors and catch those errors. So anything that you're throwing exceptions, log all of that. I really like using tools like Kibana and Grafana. I'll take those tools, I'll take those logs, and I'll throw those in there so I can visualize those errors. So as I'm ramping up my flag, I can see if anything is going awry. I can see if I'm getting back anything wrong as I'm ramping up the flag, because you'll never know. There may be at a certain threshold, once you hit a certain user number, weird things may happen. So say, for example, you are at 1%, things are going great. 10%, great. 25, awesome. And maybe when you hit 50%, you start seeing an error. API, too much data requests, and then you keep seeing this error come back to you. Maybe you've hit a situation where you've hit a threshold, too many users have access to this API, and now you need to roll back that change. It's really easy to do that with feature flags. All you have to do is revert it. So when we're talking about this roll-up, rolling out, that percentage, just put that to 0. As easy as that, and you're done. You can go ahead and revert that change. And this is really the powerful part of it, right? When we're talking about stable code, when we're talking about being confident in what the code that we're putting out there. So finally, like you've done all of this. You've put out this awesome code, you put out this great feature, and you're really happy. You haven't heard a peep on social media, you haven't heard anything, everything's going well. You're not done yet, right? You want to make sure that you remove your flag. Feature flags are very powerful, but they can cause something called technical debt, which we're all very familiar with, and can be very nasty, right? So, as I mentioned before, say that you're iterating over something and you have old code that you're iterating over and you want to get rid of. Make sure that you get rid of that old code. Even if you're not iterating, make sure that you get rid of those if statements. Make sure you get rid of those flags in the configuration files. This is going to help you in the long run. You don't want to end up in a situation where you have hundreds and hundreds of flags. As we were saying earlier, flags can be at all different stages. And if you have flags littered throughout your code, it can be very confusing for you and for your teammates. If flags are littered around and you're trying to figure out, this method's called by this method, but this flag, I'm not sure if it's on, so how do I know what's actually happening in this code? So use feature flags, but use them wisely, is really my advice there. And again, just when you are thinking about why should you use them, remember these main things, right? When you are trying to scale up, when you have a large user base and you want to be confident that you're going to release stable code that's not going to break on your users, this is going to help you out. When you want to be able to be agile and deploy regularly, this is going to help you out. And of course, when you want to test your code in production, feature flags are going to help you out. I think I've actually kind of talked a little too quickly here, but that's really mostly what I have for you guys on feature flags. There are different ways to use them, as I referenced earlier, but this is really the most common way you're going to see people use feature flags in production code. But yeah, if y'all have any questions, feel free to tweet at me or just come up to me afterwards. But yes, thank all of you very, very much.